So welcome back to Energy First with Sarah Phillips and Jen McIntyre, special guest as well. We'll introduce in a little minute. First of all, just want to go over the mission of the reason why we started this podcast. First of all, we wanted to center on education. So both education in regards to the energy sector itself, as well as career paths via education into our industry, legislation. So that's both legislation that is currently in effect that's affecting our industry, and also upcoming legislation that could affect our industry in the future. And then most importantly, the people of the energy sector, because that's truthfully what makes it the great industry that it is. Talking about the people of the industry, we are going to be heading out to KSW's Crawfish Boil. And I think we're going to talk to a few of the drilling folks out there that'll be hanging out with them for that. We are coming up to the end of the season for these mud bugs, so this will be one of the last ones, but I'm super excited to eat as many as I possibly can before they're all gone.
I don't think I've had one.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
That's like blasphemy. You cannot work in oil and gas and not have eaten crawfish.
I'm not from Louisiana.
Neither am I. Neither am I. But I eat it like 3 times a month, something like that. Yeah. But very common in our industry. Hopefully it's absolutely delicious. We can't thank them enough for inviting us. And I also was speaking to Producers Supply. They are opening another branch up in Williamsport. I do think we're going to go up there for opening day. They have several locations around the United States, and they're just a really cool company that's kind of grown with the energy sector up here. And they're a really good example of a company that was non-oil and gas, whose entire business model completely evolved based on the boom that we had here in Appalachia and how they adjusted to that and what they actually provide for our industry now. And then we also get to hang out with Sarah. One of the other Sarahs. So that's super exciting. And then last but not least, we definitely want to touch on the sponsors for the podcast. So thank you to Deep Well Services. We love you guys. Always super supporters of all of Sarah and I's efforts. Thank you to Women's Energy Network. They are continually supportive of what it is that we've got going on. I actually think we're going to be emceeing the Boots and Ball Gowns event in August for those girls. So that's super exciting. And I think that's the sponsors that we have.
The Cryptocurrency Energy Summit sponsored.
Oh, did they?
A couple. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, that's good. That's good.
That's May 11th.
Yeah, we're going to be going to that too because Sarah's actually speaking.
It's my first speaking.
Yeah.
I'm very
She
scared.
says I have to stand on stage and hold her hand.
Seriously. It's not a joke.
I don't think that's going to happen.
Oh, okay.
But without further ado, Sarah, would you like to go ahead and introduce today's guest?
Yes, we're very lucky to have Dave Callahan. He is the president of the Marcellus Shale Coalition here with us today, looking very dapper.
And
it's
here's
great to
me.
be with you both.
Yeah, I apologize. I was out in the field
I didn't get
this
the
morning.
memo.
I'm sorry. I didn't get the memo today with the day that I've had, guys. To be honest, I was soaking wet like 20 minutes ago. So It is what it is. You get what you get, right?
Yeah, you're busy.
Yeah.
Hardworking woman.
Uh-huh.
That's
yeah.
what happens.
So, Dave, if you don't mind, tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, what kind of led to the start of your career.
Sure. Again, thanks a lot for the opportunity to be here with you all. I like the mission. The mission is great. Education, making people aware, showing people the opportunities for careers. Look at the story that you told about the company that wasn't involved in the industry, saw an opportunity. There's stories like that all over Pennsylvania, Ohio, West Virginia, all over the place.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Happy to be with you. I'm president of the Marcellus Shale Coalition, statewide trade association here in Pennsylvania, representing roughly 140 companies involved in all aspects of the industry, from literally wellhead to burner tip. So producers, midstream companies, downstream companies, and of course, all the businesses and interests that provide professional services and goods to the industry. So we're talking about environmental firms, law firms, drilling firms, and we're proud to say over the past 2 years, we've had some construction trade unions join the MSC, showing the strong relationship between labor, construction trade labor, and energy and the things that we need for domestic energy security, jobs, environmental progress.
Yeah, I've seen a lot, a kind of shift in the tide with that myself. Even on the union front, I've seen a lot more openness and willingness to kind of discuss things and talk about a lot of the trials and tribulations that are affecting everybody, which is wonderfully refreshing. I come from a strong union family. My dad was like third generation. I do remember when I was like 8 years old, he came home and he sat at our kitchen table. He actually ran the East Coast union for the GE glass factory for GE itself. And he just started crying. And I was like, Dad, what's wrong? And he said, we're third generation union. Your grandpap ran this union before me. He said, and we're facing a layoff, and we have these young people who they're going to lay off instead of us old guys who are willing to take the layoff. And they are the ones that have families that they need to support. And they're not willing to let us take that change. And he left the union that day because it wasn't changing with the times. So what I'm saying is it's so wonderful because I see all these changes and synergies between those trade groups that we definitely didn't have before. There's definitely been a shift, for sure.
It's great working with them. They're great allies on the advocacy front. They do, obviously, great work for the industry out in the field. Safe, on time, affordable, you name it, you need it done, they can get it done.
And they have great mentorship programs for young people. So they have paid internships. Like when you're learning with a union body, you're paid as a young kid rather than you paying that $20,000 a year or whatever go to trade schools.
Well, and you've heard us say it before. We attract people with qualifications from a GED to a PhD. So specialists with higher and higher degrees of education, apprenticeships and others. It's a broad-based industry that provides good, family-sustaining and, as I like to say, community-sustaining wages as well.
Absolutely.
A great industry to be a part of.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, we can't thank you enough for being here, but tell us, how did you get to where you are?
I don't know where I am.
Neither do we at any given time, so it's all right.
I've worked roughly 32 years in the advocacy field in whether it's government affairs, regulatory affairs, a little bit of public affairs, primarily in the energy industry, working in trade associations for some energy industry companies as well. Leading up to the MSC, I actually worked at the Marcellus Shale Coalition for a couple of years when it first started out, or near when it first started out, around 2010. Went to work for a member company, but stayed involved with the MSC in various leadership roles, chairman, vice chairman, secretary, treasurer, those types of roles. Yeah. And then the opportunity came up to, succeed someone, Dave Spiegelmeyer, who was a great leader, as was Katie Klaber, the leader that preceded him. Just a great opportunity to walk in their footsteps, build upon what they've already built. And that happened almost 2.5 years ago. So been very happy with the engagement, really happy serving the membership and serving all the member companies and trying to work together, again, with all stakeholders in and out of the industry to help forge a good future for natural gas, and not just the industry the way it existed 10, 15, 20 years ago, but the great promise of what the industry is going to look like into the future. Not just the development of the resource, but the utilization of the resource as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So what is the actual core, if you had to say what the core mission of MSC is? I think a lot of people don't truly know what the core mission of MSC is.
Well, the coalition, just cut down to its very basics, is to propel and defend the industry in all corners with all stakeholders, advancing the industry. Whether it's making more advancements in the field, doing things better, doing things cleaner, doing things more efficiently, or doing things in the advocacy arena and public affairs arena, again, advancing or defending the industry. We take pride in what we do with our members. We take pride in being a good, solid resource for stakeholders of all kinds, the general public, government officials, the media, everyone. Yeah,
and that's something that Sarah and I are trying to do, is kind of take away some of the taboo and the, not that it's intimidating, but I think if you aren't familiar with the industry, there's a lot of lingo and a lot of processes and it's a lot for the average person.
The culture can be unapproachable at times.
It can.
Especially like if you think about the field culture with the grit and the work ethic, they're in your face.
Yeah, and a part of, especially for the general public, for not being familiar with the industry, chances are you know someone who works either directly or indirectly. Ask them questions. Ask them what they do for a living, whether they work out in the field, whether they work behind a desk, whether they do a little bit of both, and they'll tell you. Number one, it's evidence that they live in the communities where we're operating. They care about the communities where we're operating, and you can hear folks like us talk about it, or would you rather hear from your neighbor at the ballpark, in the grocery store, in the church parking lot, or the ball field, or wherever?
Yeah.
It's better to hear their stories, what they do, what they deal with, and you get a better sense of the width, the depth of the industry, the good things we're doing.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I mean, you guys put out a lot of articles and blogs, and one of the things that I like most about them is they're, number one, very informative. They're very cutting edge, so it's definitely what's coming up and what's coming out. But they're also written in a way that the person that isn't educated about our industry can easily understand them. I think that's something that I've always kind of appreciated with how you release the information that you do, because it can be a lot. I mean, I've trawled through multitudes of bills, and you get to like page 36 and you're like, geez, I can't even remember, you know what I mean, what we were addressing on page 3. So you guys are really good at doing that.
Well, I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
We have a great team of people who work really hard on communications and advocacy in general. We hold ourselves to a really high standard. We're held to a very high standard by all our stakeholders as well. So we want to put out good, solid, fact-based information that can be backed up, information that you can't be embarrassed by in terms of saying, well, I don't know if this is right or wrong. If we say it, chances are we've got a footnote under it or behind it, and it's there. We put out these blogs on a regular basis, usually weekly or so, but it's not like we're on any sort of a schedule. It's when an issue comes up.
Sure.
A good example, the latest one is a little different for us compared to what we usually do in exploring issues. Some extremist organizations have actually gone to the Federal Trade Commission to remove the word natural from natural gas and trying to replace it with, you're shaking your head.
It's just...
So you're familiar.
Yes.
So what are they trying to replace it with?
Anything that doesn't say natural, anything that has a negative connotation in their minds and perhaps in the minds of folks who read about the industry, learn about the industry. Here's the thing. Natural gas is natural. It's all based on organic material that was deposited, for lack of a better term. In the case of the Marcellus, 390, 400 million years ago.
Yeah.
Mother Nature did magic with it and turned it into hydrocarbons. It's natural.
Yeah.
Right.
But that's just an example of our latest blog, trying to share with people the lengths that opponents are going to try to discredit and do things, say things about the industry, but also as a means to, encourage people to read beyond the headlines, to, when you read something like that, okay, who's saying it? Why are they saying it? What's in it for
What's
me?
the
What's in
agenda
it for
behind
them?
it?
Yeah. So when we were talking about this, one prime example, whenever I first started researching this, is our opponents were talking about the ocean is turning to acid, and it just, they were being very hyperbolic with their language, right? So the ocean's pH level is 8.3, and it's moving more towards being neutral. It's not turning to acid, it's neutralized. And so how would you advise the skeptics to know when they're being distorted and how to know what the truth is?
Just investigate it. Look at all sources. Again, I would love it if people just came to us for their information, but I know that's not entirely possible. But take a look at our website. Take a look at our fact sheets. I love fact sheets. We have fact sheets
They have
galore.
really
And
good
anything
fact
you want
sheets,
to,
yeah.
and again, if you see a topic there, you want to dig a little deeper, do your own exploring, but come back to that and you'll see that we lay out good, solid facts on all sorts of topics and issues. Take a look at social media, take a look at what we're putting out there. And for those who are professional-minded, take a look at LinkedIn, places like that. And of course, listen to podcasts where you can dig into the issues.
Yeah, absolutely. I was actually going to say that to our listeners, not just from the industry. I would highly recommend that you connect with the MSC on your social media. That way that information comes across your feed. just because it is very, very clear, very easy to understand, and completely unbiased information in regards to our industry. So I would really encourage everybody to find the organization on their social media and follow it so that it comes up for you to read. So let's talk about impact fees. So tell us a little bit, for those that don't know, what an impact fee is, what it's generated from, and what you see in the near future in regards to impact fees here.
Sure. The impact fees were imposed on the industry back in 2012 when the General Assembly put together new regulations for the modern unconventional, or put together legislation for the modern unconventional natural gas industry. There were various components to it, whether it's dealing with setbacks, new drilling requirements, all sorts of things. In addition, there was
setbacks.
there was a tax component to it. The impact fee is basically Pennsylvania's severance tax. A lot has been made about Pennsylvania does or doesn't have a set. We do. It's just called something different.
Just like they're going to change natural to something else.
Correct. Correct. A lot's in a word.
Yeah.
So the impact fee is assessed on every well drilled in PA. It's assessed on a sliding scale based on the number of, how old the well is, first year versus 15th year, as well as the price of gas. And as we all know, the commodity price of gas goes all over the place, up and down. And so there's a sliding scale. When prices are lower, the fee is a little lower. When prices are higher, the fee is higher. Coming off of last year, when prices were higher, and again, when I say prices, not to get too far down the rabbit hole, it's based on NYMEX Henry Hub national benchmark prices. So it'd be nice if it was on PA, but that's the way they decided it. Last year, prices were a little bit higher, and so the impact fees were at the very top of the scale. So as a result, this year, when the Public Utility Commission distributes impact fees to municipalities and others, it's going to be a record year. And again, understanding it goes up and down. It could be a down year next year based on prices and other factors. This year, it's going to be at the highest it's ever been. An independent office of the Commonwealth estimated be around $270 million. And if that comes to fruition, total amount collected and dispersed in Pennsylvania since its inception, well north of $2.5 billion.
That's crazy.
Real money making real differences in local communities.
What did they do with that money? Oh.
Well,
So they
Sorry, I interrupted you.
So last year, I think it was 11 point something was given to Washington County, 7 point something was given to Fayette. And it can be spent on like road improvements, bridge improvements. There is set criteria. If you go and look at the impact fees, there is certain criteria of what they can and can't spend it on. Social programs, right? Isn't
it's
that
pretty
correct?
wide.
Yeah.
It's a pretty wide swath of programs, but it's mainly when you think of good, solid local government services. Anything from tax abatement, records. Records when this industry came into being, the modern industry, needed some updating to come into maybe the 20th century, if not the 21st. So I think the local governments made good use, whether it's infrastructure projects of, typical park programs. It could be recreational programs, making trails
Rails
and
to
things.
trails.
Yeah. Very good use of the dollars. And again, going right back to the communities where the development's taking place. It's been wildly successful. There are different avenues for municipalities to collect those dollars, but it's primarily through the direct distribution from the PUC. But again, a record year this year. No promise of next year's because, again, the cyclical nature of the commodities market. But we're one of the few taxpayers that celebrates the payment of tax. Now, mind you, when I say it, it's a little bit of hyperbole. But we do celebrate when those dollars go out.
Yeah.
We're proud of where those dollars are going. And if we don't share it, no one else will. So we're happy to do that.
So I have a question.
And it also partially it funds the DP. It's worth saying that too.
Yes.
That those impact fees.
Okay,
So-
I have to say this. I'm from Morgantown, West Virginia. It has a bunch of windy roads. There's potholes everywhere. Why can't we fix them with the impact fees?
Well, let's we'll call Senator Manchin. Let's see.
Yeah. Why are there always potholes?
And I'll say, here's my friend Sarah. Can you ask her? Listen, we have plenty of potholes here in Pennsylvania too, for sure.
Yeah.
But I will say this, not to go too far down the rabbit hole again, but the industry takes its role very seriously in working cooperatively with local governments, with the state, to ensure the roads are maintained and they're up to sufficient levels where they can support the equipment that does travel down those roads. There have been very, very good relationships built both locally and at the state level on cooperative projects, making sure those roads are in very good shape for the motoring public as well as for the industry.
I'm working on 3 projects right now.
Really?
I can't say who we're working on them for, but it is road improvements in West Findlay County or West Findlay Township, and they are spending an absolute fortune making sure that these small issues in these roads are fixed correctly, permanently. And I mean, they're spending a lot of money on it. It happens all the time. We make money on it too then. Keeps our guys busy, but we take it very seriously, those improvements, for sure. And it happens all the time, everywhere. Yeah. So obviously you're in Harrisburg, right? There's a lot of pressure now, always out there. How do you handle that?
Well, number one, we're out in Harrisburg. We're here. We have offices in both places, but we do take our advocacy role quite seriously. I think we do a very good job at it. We have some of the very best working in and around the industry in those advocacy roles. Again, sharing good, solid, fact-based information. We understand that we're only as good as our word, right? Mm-hmm. In any role, regardless of business. So when you're talking with the legislator, whether they're from a producing area of the state or a non-producing area, give them the facts, give them both sides of those facts, give them everything they need to make good, solid decisions.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
And work cooperatively with other organizations. We already talked about organized labor in terms of the construction trades. Working cooperatively with the state chamber, with local chambers, regional chambers to talk about economic development, working with the chemical industry that makes tremendous use of natural gas and natural gas liquids. I mean, billions of dollars. I think the chemical industry said last year, cumulatively, somewhere around $200 billion been invested in the chemical industry as a direct result of the shale revolution. And a lot of that, and a lot of that's coming from up here, and specifically in this area, because of the abundance of natural gas liquids here.
Well, most people don't realize all of the products that can be made with natural gas, like the chemicals. So some of these legislatures that you help educate, do you tell them about these things? Are their minds blown?
It's a part for legislators to understand, regulators, the general public, all stakeholders to understand. Now, I don't know how much time we have left, but we could spend all of this podcast, the next 2 or 3, just going through different categories of products that are made from natural gas. But suffice it to say, everything that we're talking into, everything that's recording here, everything, water bottle and everything else has its roots in natural gas liquids. The NGLs that come out of specifically this part of the state, they're the building blocks, the chemical building blocks for everything we need in life, whether it's medical care, health care, building materials. I know I harp on that a lot in our meetings. It's like, go to Home Depot, go to Lowe's, go to a local hardware store, and look at everything in there that has its roots in natural gas, whether it's fertilizers in the gardening area, whether it's junction boxes in the electrical area, plastic pipe, you name it, it's all around us. And it's coming from here. And if I could keep going on, to get on the soapbox perhaps, there might be a day, I've heard the folks at Shell say that when you hold up a plastic water bottle or a piece of plastic of some kind, you might be able to say that's carbon neutral. Mm-hmm. It's about what I talked about earlier, and that is not about the way we're doing things today, but what's possible tomorrow. And a part of what we do, looping way back around to the advocacy question, how do we deal with it? It's about ensuring that the industry has the opportunities, and those who invest in and around the industry on the utilization of natural gas have an opportunity to continue to evolve the use, both the production and the use of the great products.
And I think a couple of things. I always explain to people what's petroleum based and what's not. I say to them, if it is a thing or was a thing, i.e. a tree, a bird, a whatever, that's not petroleum based. If it's an object, it's most likely petroleum based.
But even
of any kind.
That's true. But even things that aren't petroleum based, like for example, water, like the irrigation systems that we needed to power the machines, the machine food, we wouldn't have clean water. We wouldn't have pears. We wouldn't have food.
Yeah.
You know, it's literally everything.
It is.
Well, and Sarah, you talk about those 4 elements that are essential for life: steel, ammonia,
cement, ammonia, and plastic.
Yeah. All have something to do with the industry in some fashion. Obviously, plastics directly, but all the other elements as well. And for understanding that even on the renewable side, you can't make windmills, you can't make solar panels without natural gas. And you need natural gas right now to help supplement them because they're intermittent. And it's not a knock. It's just the nature of what they are and who they are and how they operate.
And where they are in their life stage as far as development is concerned.
And it doesn't mean it's going to always be that. But
Yeah.
for now, we heard it from the PUC commissioner herself last week at an event we hosted. Natural gas is essential for reliability of the grid. And we can't forestall development of natural gas without understanding there are consequences down the road.
Yeah, well, okay. So speaking of not understanding the consequences down the road, I have this friend, I posted something on LinkedIn and he responded, which, sometimes that happens. But he was talking about how we don't need natural gas. And he said, I took a year-long backpacking trip in Wyoming and I didn't touch natural gas once, or I didn't touch fossil fuels. And I'm like, how'd you get your food? What was your backpack made out of? How did you get
Your
there?
shoes.
How did you clean your water? He had heart surgery. Like, would that have happened? Would you be alive? And people outside of the United States who are uncomfortable don't have these luxuries, but we're comfortable. So we take them for granted. And we don't really care how we got this water.
Well, Europe kind of took that for granted for a while when they were happy to have natural gas imported from a not so friendly country in Russia. And then now with their situation or their evolving situation, they're turning to us, not just to replace the supply, but to be a reliable supplier of natural gas. But they also understand its role in their economy since it was more or less taken away. They understand the role that it plays, not just economically, but environmentally as well. They see the superiority of natural gas produced here in the United States. They know that it's much cleaner than what they were getting from Russia. So it's an opportunity there as well. And I'm not saying that we forestall or foreclose opportunities to do more with natural gas here. We have an abundance of supply. And so we can serve our needs here. We can help our allies abroad as well.
We can, but I mean, a lot of people need to understand that it's not just like a switch. You can't just decide, okay, well, we're going to increase supply for ourselves and for Europe. It takes time. There are permits that need done, the actual drilling itself, the completion, the putting into production, the actual construction of the pipelines to get it where it needs to be, the facilities for it to be exported. It's something that we need to plan. We should have been planning for and making strides to do a long time ago. So we do have some catching up to do.
The last 2 things that you mentioned, pipelines and facilities for export, that is top of mind right now and has been for a long time. We're capacity constrained here in Pennsylvania. We produce more or less, maybe a tick less than what we did in 21 and 22. So it's one of the first times that production actually dropped a wee little bit. But it's mainly because of the infrastructure situation. We need more pipes in the ground. MVP is sitting there 94, 95% complete.
Yeah.
Delay.
Yeah.
We need infrastructure and power generation too. We just saw within the last few weeks a big facility up in Clinton County in Renovo. The developer walked away from that after 8 years of planning and then delay. We need this infrastructure. And not just here. Now, it would be great to have it just here, but we need to get product up to areas of the country, into areas of the country where they're paying just incredible prices, where supplies are scarce.
Yeah, Toby's mom. Right? Yeah. He always talks about his mom having to pay so much.
I'm thinking of New England. I mean, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, it's a mouthful. They have twice-a-year conferences up in Boston, in the New England area, to talk about adequacy issues. It's a fancy word to say, will we have enough this year? What do we do if we don't have enough? We're talking about the most advanced economy on the face of the earth, thinking about not having enough gas to heat homes and supply factories, not having enough power to keep the lights going. And it's mainly due to state governments and others closing the door on infrastructure development. And when we've got supplies here just a couple hundred miles away, we need to make some changes there. I don't know whether and how that'll happen quickly or not. We're encouraged by what we hear from Governor Shapiro. We've obviously been encouraged by what we've heard from our friends in the General Assembly going back years and years who have been working on permitting issues, infrastructure issues throughout. Hopefully all these interests will align and we could carve a path forward to make sure that infrastructure is permitted efficiently and put into the ground so that we can, number one, grow production and reap the benefits, both economic and environmental, from increased use of natural gas.
Absolutely. And that's normal use. We're not even talking about if there were a threat to our country. I mean, you talk about, gosh forbid we were at war with somebody, the increase in manufacturing. How would we cope with that? I mean, how does the current bottleneck of production affect our national security? What are your feelings on that?
Well, national security and energy security go hand in hand.
Absolutely.
Again, looking at our friends and allies in Europe, they were vulnerable and continue to be somewhat vulnerable, but they were particularly vulnerable when, Russia cut supplies. Oh, we had a compressor go down, said the Russian energy company, really diminishing supplies to Europe, and their national security was at risk. Here in this country, we've talked about energy security going back to, presidents have said it, going back to Eisenhower, perhaps even before that. We finally became energy secure not that long ago, and it's helped us, I think, from our national security perspective. We don't have to worry about sending men and women overseas to defend U.S. interests where we otherwise would not have to.
Absolutely.
It's really done a great job for our security here in the United States. And, we're thinking about what it can do elsewhere again. We could support all our needs here in this country and help people worldwide, where it's their security, it's their health that's in peril. It's their lack of they can't reach energy or they have inadequate supplies of energy. I think I've heard estimates anywhere from 2 to 3 billion people in the world live in energy poverty. They can't afford it. They don't have access to it. What they do have is unhealthy for them.
Yeah.
We can help with that.
Yeah.
And we have been helping with that.
So I have a question about Europe that's kind of unrelated, but maybe related.
I volunteer to go over there and investigate your question. I'll be back in about a month. Yeah.
I
Depends
think
where it is.
I maybe heard this somewhere and I might be mistaken. So if I'm mistaken, I'm sorry. But they had this huge push to have green energy, right? Then they realized, oh crap, we don't have enough energy. And then coal was easily accessible. So they turned to a less clean energy, which was counterproductive to their original goal. So whenever you do push for these like wind and solar, less efficient, less abundant, less dense forms of energy, you realize you don't have enough, and then you panic, and then you go to a dirtier source.
Yeah, because it's easily accessible. I mean, coal.
Did that happen? So is that the path that the pushing for green energy usually takes?
China's putting up a new coal-fired power plant, one a week?
Yeah, but
More
China's
than
not
that?
like doing what Europe did and like pushing for the green energy.
No, they're just utilizing a situation to their benefit.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
But is that right?
Europe found out, and I think there's a lesson there for all governments, whether it's state, local, federal or not, that there are consequences to all sorts of actions. There are consequences to saying this should be the energy mix instead of allowing the marketplace, which while it can seem inefficient, is certainly more efficient than government edict deciding what the marketplace looks like. Let the marketplace decide. Let innovation continue, and let that energy mix play out on its own, because it is happening. The industry is becoming energy broadly is becoming more sustainable every single day. Energy companies, big and small, public, private, are all interested in doing the job better every single day, cleaner every single day.
And we have
Especially
for a very
here.
long time.
Yes, this isn't something that just happened a year or so ago.
Long time. I mean, I know it's kind of like the catchwords right now, but I mean, the differences that I see in our operation from an environmental perspective in the last 15 years are absolutely unbelievable. And I can honestly say, because I do dabble in industrial processes and, some other types of industries, we go far quicker, spend a lot more money in developing these processes. The MSC, do you guys play any part in kind of ESG messaging or helping the companies through MSC talk to each other? Or is there anything that you guys do to kind of, raise awareness of that stuff?
We certainly do. We convene our members through committees and other features on a regular basis. And some of those committees deal with ESG matters, understanding that companies are at different phases of their, let's say, ESG walk, so to speak. There's something to be learned by anyone and everyone. We bring in outside speakers. We bring in people to talk about what they're doing, how they're doing it. And again, this is something that's important to companies, whether they're private, public, small, big, PE-backed, or more, or otherwise. It's very important. And largely, when you do things a little differently, there are some bumps in the road, but, eventually doing things a certain way becomes economical as well as more sustainable.
Absolutely.
And we're seeing that every day. We're seeing that out in the field with more electric hydraulic fracturing operations, more electric drilling operations. It's happening.
The water?
Yeah, recycling the water, yes. We talked a little bit before about the fact that the industry pioneered this, going back many years, but pioneered the recycling of wastewater to the tune of upwards of 95% right now.
Yeah, we're doing an amazing job. Job. I've kind of seen that. And that's been quick because I think probably 10 years ago, I was still getting phone calls when we were getting rid of all of Intera's impoundment ponds here in Pennsylvania and things like that. I mean, what we do with our water now is just like night and day. It's an example.
We set the example for the rest of the country where operators in other basins are trying to keep up with us.
Absolutely. And I think ESG is just us formalizing what we've been doing for years, right? And putting it in the public eye. That's all I see it as. I don't see it as this new thing that we're doing. It's just simply formalizing it.
It's a recognition of the culture,
Correct.
the way companies operate. Now, mind you, it can be weaponized in some fashions,
Sure.
just like anything else that you measure, analyze, and report. But at its core, it's very basic in recognition of how a company operates along various metrics.
Yeah, I agree. Absolutely. Can you have you guys done any research? Or what did you see happen to our industry through the kind of COVID pandemic? And do you feel that it changed our practices at all? Did you guys change at all in regards to that kind of happening?
There's a lot. Well, number one, it changed what you do. Number one, you're behind microphones, and people are either watching or listening to this in ways that they really didn't do before COVID. Everything has changed in the industry thanks to COVID. We've got people working.
I say thanks to COVID too, actually, because I think it actually opened up our eyes to a lot of things that we weren't necessarily doing that we should have been doing.
Oh, that's true.
I really do. I'm not thankful for all of it. I'm just saying some of it.
But here's the thing. In an industry that is used to the commodity cycle of high and low, times of very active, times that aren't so active, COVID, while it was a challenge in terms of industrial hygiene, things like that, take, for example, the Shell petrochemical facility and all the lengths that they went through to ensure that the workforce, the highly skilled workforce up there that was putting together the plant was healthy at the same time, that they weren't, allowing COVID to spread, that they were taking care of people, moving them in, moving them out, when it came to feeding them and everything else. There are challenges galore, but we're used to the ups and downs. But this helped people understand what's necessary and how to take care of their employees a little bit as well.
I would
Whether
agree
it's
with that,
allowing
for
them
sure.
to work a little, for those who can.
Yeah.
So it's not like you could be a well tender doing that from your home.
Sure. But then if you're a well tender, you're out there by yourself anyhow. So you know what I mean? It's like you're not really around people. Yeah. So I have to give a shout out to Alan Ammon. I'm on doing this podcast with Dave and Sarah. That's why you haven't gotten the contact from me yet. He's actually director of maintenance for Shell, and he called me on my way here, and I owe him a contact. So I'm sorry, Alan. I promise I'll get it to you when we're done here. That facility is amazing. Have you guys been able to go and see it?
Yeah, it's a great example of taking good advantage of the great resources we have here. The ethane potential here is there to support that facility, perhaps others. And Shell has done, and others have done a very good job of investing in the workforce before the plant even came into operation. They've funded some programs out in Williamsport at Penn College. They funded up at Barron,
yes.
Where those two colleges in Pennsylvania, I think 2 of 5, formally accredited plastic programs in the entire United States. So students can go there. Whether, again, it's Penn College in Williamsport or Barron up in Erie, and get an education that they could only get in 3 other places in the United States, and become well qualified to do the job, and again, to allow the industry to expand, allow the industry to evolve. It's a great facility.
Shell are a wonderful company to work with. Personally, I found them wonderful. They've had several large events where everybody flies in from all over the world to kind of speak with and honor their diverse contractors. They have a great program in place for that. Their safety program is absolutely second to none. I mean, they are absolutely a phenomenal company for sure. So
I'm tour their plant.
We'll get you in there for sure.
Really
But it's
do.
like it's extensive safety wise to get you a badge. But I'm sure we
I
can
work for
probably do.
Schlumberger. That extensive.
Well, I'll tell you what, and again, we've got, Shell is one of 140, but I will say this, you could talk to any one of our members, whether it's upstream, midstream, downstream, any of the other, the more you get to know, the more that you're amazed at what they do, how they do it, and again, getting back to that word, culture as well. The culture of these businesses, the culture that's not just an oil and gas company or a natural gas company, but a Pennsylvania company, that rings through loud and clear, or a Pennsylvania company that operates, good example, in Williamsport, up in Susquehanna County, down here in Washington County. They're a part of the social fabric, part of the economic fabric. They're a part of the communities, and it's reflected.
Absolutely. And I'm sure you've seen it just in your history in the industry, the kind of change. Initially the industry came here. We were relatively unfamiliar with what needed to be done to carry out these processes. We did have an influx of workforce from other places. But I'm so proud to see the workforce that we have in this industry in PA, West Virginia, and Ohio, because I would probably estimate that it's 85% people from here that are working in our industry. It's local people.
We're giving, young students,
Yeah.
or I shouldn't say young, but students, job changers, a reason to stay in PA, a reason to stay home. From a salary standpoint, there was a DOE study back in, I think it was 2020. It showed average wages in the industry of about $112,000. You knock out supervisors, still $88,000. Again, going back to GED to PhD, this is a good industry to provide good paying jobs. And again, as I said, community sustaining jobs as well. These people live and work in the communities, pay taxes in their communities. They support their local charities. It's a part of the fabric of PA.
Yeah.
And it's easy to find a job,
Yeah.
We need more people for jobs.
Like all these high school graduates,
Correct.
I can't find a job. Yeah, you can.
Yeah.
Well, there's a ton.
Yeah, absolutely. So talking about the Shell and various different facilities, when you were speaking to Sarah, you were telling her something about the Sherwood facility, which I've actually been down there too.
It's just another part of the value chain for natural gas liquids. Natural gas liquids obviously are entrained with methane when it comes out of the ground. There are various facilities around western PA, eastern Ohio, the Panhandle of West Virginia that process it natural gas. It's pretty fancy word for basically separating those liquid hydrocarbons from the methane, temperature and pressure. basic concepts that even this liberal arts major can understand. That plant and others like it do that very basic thing. At those plants, sometimes because it's the lightest of those natural gas liquids, they separate ethane from those natural gas liquids, and they send that ethane, whether it's up to Shell, whether it's up to Sarnia, Ontario, on Mariner West, or whether it's out to Marcus Hook on Mariner East. That we have these facilities that have popped up. And again, let me go back to the chain. After that, you could fractionate those natural gas liquids into other valuable commodities.
Sure.
Propane, butane, isobutane, pentanes, or what they call natural gasoline. So there are these facilities, again, just manipulating temperature and pressure all over PA, Ohio, and West Virginia, a part of a massive infrastructure build-out of, I'm guessing, tens of billions of dollars of investment, jobs, benefits that are going into keeping this natural gas liquids industry vibrant, making this part of the country a major player on par with Louisiana and other parts of the country as well.
Absolutely. What are your feelings or thoughts on hydrogen? That's my newest exciting thing, the hydrogen recovery stuff.
Certainly has promise, and it's worth exploring. You know, again, I talked a little bit about let's not foreclose the future by saying thou shalt not use natural gas. Perhaps some futures or some opportunities are there with hydrogen. Natural gas is a very reliable way to create hydrogen. You pair it up with carbon capture, it becomes very sustainable hydrogen too. And that hydrogen then can be used to decarbonize certain elements of the economy that are hard to decarbonize. So we have a number of 2, if not 3, hydrogen hub proposals that involve Pennsylvania and or Pennsylvania companies.
I keep keeping my ear to the ground because I want to figure out where they are and who's doing them.
And, those are in the hands of the Department of Energy right now. They're going to be deciding on those, who moves on to the next round or who gets the funding moving ahead. I think that's an exciting future. And
it could be an exciting future for here. This is another potential for the tri-state area for another facility that's doing another process and it's creating more jobs, just like the kind of Shell cracker was this amazing thing that came to the area. So,
and here's the thing. Is it the answer? We don't know.
Sure.
Is it an answer? It certainly could be an answer among a number of other answers.
Sure.
Perhaps another answer is utilizing natural gas methane at your home or business, putting it through a fuel cell to generate clean power for your home down the road. The options are limitless, and it's about applying technology, applying good old American know-how and ingenuity. The marketplace has done great things in the industry. It's going to continue to do that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So those are my obsessions right now is anything that has to do with hydrogen. And then I'm really interested in microgrids. That's the power recovery for any kind of manufacturing processes that we have. And there's loads of different types of microgrids. I mean, that's what we should be doing is capturing these things that are being produced as a byproduct of the processes that we're already doing. That just makes sense to me. You talk about, and I think that there's a future for all of these energy sources, solar, wind, all of them. But when you talk about like low hanging fruit, in my mind, at least, those kind of things seem like lower hanging fruit realities, potential realities than some of the other things that I think are just going to take so much more development to really get them where they need to be.
Well,
right?
Anything that generates heat.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
Anything that generates heat, perhaps that heat can be captured. We see it happen at compressor stations.
Yep.
We talked about the processing of natural gas. In the processing plants, they utilize both the cool and the hot that you get from various stages to do different things. It's only natural.
Yeah, absolutely. So what would you say that MSC is concentrating most of all right now? I mean, what are you guys currently working on that's your really, really hot topics? And I know there's probably thousands of them.
There are thousands. Whether it's all the regulatory matters going on in Washington, D.C. or Harrisburg, or whether it's advancing the ball in the General Assembly and with the new administration as well as down in D.C. on permitting.
I'm actually really hopeful. I am really hopeful. I mean, conversations have been good.
Yes.
Yeah.
We need to advance the ball on permitting reform. We need to advance the ball on regulatory predictability. Waiting hundreds of days for a permit that should realistically take a couple of weeks. And
does in other states. That's
exactly,
the thing.
The capital is going to those states where it's easier to develop, cheaper to develop, where you don't have to worry about challenges to permits, challenges to your project. There has to be a better way to do this, to keep involving stakeholders, to make sure that no corners are cut, but to make sure that the review process and to make sure that the regulations are crystal clear so that somebody who comes into the state says, I want to build something here, whether it's a compressor station, whether it's developing a well, or if it's a factory or a playground, they know what the rules are. They know how long it's going to take to get a permit, and they know what it's going to cost and when they're going to actually see light at the end of the tunnel.
Absolutely. And in reference to our operators, the majority of them, except for Range Resources, they're probably the only one that has acreage specifically only in Pennsylvania. The rest of them do have options, right? EQT
Some do,
has
but
acreage in other places, and I think that needs to be definitely kept in mind.
Well, you do work
why
in
are they unclear?
It's happened for a long time. It could be a management issue. It could be an issue on the permits of not being very clear of what's actually required.
Do you think that's
it could be a training issue for the permit reviewers?
Design?
That's a complete rabbit hole.
They generate money. I mean, so you know what I mean? I'd hate to think that we're purposely.
But why is it just specific to one state?
Well, because it's run by a different state. It's a different program. The West Virginia permitting program is run by a different body than ours is. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's why.
It's the culture of the we're proud of the fact that we're operating under some of the most stringent regulations in the entire country.
Oh, I don't want the regulations to go away. I think they're good. They hold us accountable.
It's about the interpretation of those regs. It's about the leeway of saying, well, the regs say this, but we think you should do that. Or the permit says this. Would you like to do that and a little bit more, a little bit less, or move that over here or that over there?
Yeah.
The industry uses professional engineers, right? People who put their stamp on the line every time they put a plan in front of a permit reviewer. And professional services, whether it's environmental consultants or engineers or others, who do work for other industries, who have been a part of, again, Pennsylvania's economy in general, going back generations. Trust them to do what they know how to do, to understand what the permit requirements are. I'm not saying look the other way, but I'm saying just understand and be clear on what it takes to satisfy that permit, and know that when somebody with a professional background puts that in front of you, that you shouldn't have to worry about, is that T crossed, and I dotted.
Sure.
That it's there.
And then please tell me about these proposed increases in our setbacks, because they're terrifying to me.
Well, there's been legislation introduced last session and
I know.
Introduced again this session that would change setbacks. Setbacks are basically mandated distances, mandated in law.
It's 200 right now, right?
It's 500 for a building and much, much more for other things. But distances between wells and either natural features or man-made structures. And so there have been proposals introduced again last year and this year to take, for example, the current 500-foot setback from a well to a building, moving that out to 2,500 feet, changing it for other features out to 5,000 feet.
It's literally going to exclude
95%
of everything that we can drill on.
When the county we're sitting in right now, try 99%.
Yeah.
And that doesn't guarantee that number one, the 1% remaining is viable. Number two, that anybody would ever want to utilize that 1%. It is a ban. It's a thinly veiled attempt to ban natural gas development in Pennsylvania. We have among the biggest setbacks among major producing states, especially among our neighbors, West Virginia.
They did this in
Ohio.
Colorado, and that's how they kind of stopped everything there.
At least Colorado has land.
Well, we have
another way.
too.
That's another way of looking at it. While they did do it in Colorado, it certainly had a chilling effect on the industry. But where the development was taking place, it wasn't exactly highly populated or anything like that. So it's a completely different situation.
Yeah.
We've got, the strongest regs on the books. We've got reasonable setbacks that work together to be protective of, number one, the workers, the community, and the environment.
We're drilling down. That's what I understand why people can't understand. We are drilling down. We are not drilling down, right? We are going way far down, not affecting anything. There is no logical reason why you need 2,500 feet. Is that what you're saying?
Correct.
Yeah.
Again, it's a ban. It has nothing to do with
but
the number.
I don't think the average person understands that.
It has nothing to do
that's
with
what this proposal is going to do.
25 or 1,000 or whatever.
Yeah.
It's a ban. It's intended to be a ban. It's not intended to be helpful. It's intended to stop the industry.
What are things that we as people that work in the industry do you think can do? Because this is my bee in my bonnet right now is these setbacks. They terrify me. To kind of increase awareness of what that truly means. Because I don't think the average person reading that bill or seeing it truly understands.
What is their reasoning for having a setback?
Because they are trying to stop us from
I know,
doing
but what are
anything.
they saying? They're not saying we don't want to have natural gas. They're saying we
Well,
have
of course,
to have
they're not
these
going to say
spaces.
that. They're
Right,
just going
but
to do it another way.
Why wouldn't they say that? Like, what are they saying? I don't know how to say that. How are they justifying their means?
Why are they saying that they need those setbacks? For environmental purposes, so that they don't impact schools, churches, houses, all of those types of
Do
things.
they think it's infiltrating the water?
It has nothing to do with what they think. It's about what they want to do with
Yeah.
it. And to your point, though, about what can we do, talk to your colleagues. Talk to people who work in the industry, first
They don't
of all, to
know.
understand.
I've talked to lots, and they have no idea.
We have a good fact sheet on our website. We've got other information available
I have
as well.
it printed in my truck.
All
I
right.
carry it around
All
with
right.
me. I'm like, hey, do you realize this is what
She
they're
sent it
trying
to
to
me.
do? I did. I sent it to her.
Talk to your legislators. Talk
Yeah.
to them and share with them the impact that you understand that it's a ban. Again, this industry is doing great things in the Commonwealth. It's doing great things in this region, not just economically, but environmentally as well. Let's not foreclose that future. Let's allow this industry to continue to evolve as it has been. You know, when you think about the roots of the natural gas industry, you know, the 1820s or so, I mean, it's come a long way, and it has a long way to go as well.
It does.
Better and better every single day.
Yeah. But all of us working in it want that, right?
We do. We do.
And that's the message we need to get out. So last thoughts about MSC, about upcoming legislation, about anything.
Boy,
last
that's a
thoughts?
loaded.
Yeah.
How much time? No. I'm gonna use last thoughts just to say thank you.
Yeah.
This is a great opportunity. It's a great forum, and it's a good, an additional opportunity for people to listen. People consume news differently. I'm from a generation where, at 6:30 at night, you had 3 choices for your news, different people delivering the news, but it was all pretty much the same. These days, people have choices.
Yeah.
You're among those choices for people who want to do a deep dive on energy, for people who want to read behind the headlines.
It's important.
Please keep it up. Keep
Yeah.
it up. We have to keep up with the times. We have to keep up with evolving ways in which people not only seek out the news, but deliver the news as well.
Absolutely.
And what people consider news. Again, use of words matter.
Absolutely. And if it's okay with you guys, I think we are going to get the team to actually put MSC's website up
Please
so
do.
that everybody can visit it. Both if anybody that's listening wants to become a member, these things don't happen for free, guys, right? So they need support. We all need support to keep this industry going and growing in the state of Pennsylvania. And then I think we'll also put up the social media links for MSC so that our non-oil and gas individuals can like and follow you guys so that they get the information in their own feed and hopefully raise their general awareness of what the industry truly is.
Well, thank you. That's
Yes,
great.
Absolutely. Thank you for coming.
you.
We can't thank you enough. And that has been another episode of Energy First with Jen and...
Jen.
Yeah, there you go. Got it. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.